You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name is Jeff Lenard with NACS.
And I'm Carolyn Schnare with NACS also.
And today, Carolyn, we're going to talk about fruits and vegetables. We're going to talk about we're not going to talk about just why they are good for you, but why they are good for your business. And by paying attention to some of the trends going on, some of the opportunities that exist within our channel might lead to not just healthy consumers, but healthy profits. So today we're joined by two people who are representing the United Fresh Produce Association. We'd like to welcome Tom Stenzel, who is the president of the United Fresh Produce Association. NACS has worked with them for a number of years on a variety of initiatives. And also Kristen Catalani Small, director of convenience store sales at Del Monte Fresh Produce. So welcome both of you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you.
I'd like to start off, Tom, by just asking you, when we started working with United Fresh a few years ago, we initially built a document together called Building the Business Case for Produce. And that was really all about telling retailers, telling distributors, and also telling your members who provide the produce, what are the benefits? What are the benefits of the business in getting into produce and growing sales? We spent a lot of time talking about trends. And do you see any new trends, Tom, that are emerging that are much different than a few years ago, particularly in the convenience channel?
Well, Jeff, you're right. When NACS and United Fresh Produce first teamed up a few years ago in this space of trying to raise the profile of the fresh opportunity for C-stores, I won't say we were ahead of our time, because we had spotted some of those trends, and you already had a number of your members who were growing that segment of their business very successfully. But it wasn't as widespread. So I think the major trend we've seen in the last several years is more of the same, just an explosion, really, in that fresh opportunity. As we see it from our side of the table as produce suppliers, increasing demand, consumers looking for fresh convenience. That's really a key, that the world of convenience is so important today to consumers, and the ability to deliver fresh produce and other fresh foods in your channel is absolutely exploding.
Well, and we've also seen a lot of different companies coming into the convenience space, whether they're delivering it that day, the next day, at home delivery, grocery. But as you mentioned, convenience is a huge factor, and that's something we have. We have the personal touch. We have it right now when you want it. You want an apple, go to the convenience store. You can find one there. And I've had so many friends and family, and work with a lot with new groups and nutritionists who have really said they've noticed a difference in convenience stores and what they're carrying. So I attributed a lot of that to some of the work that we started out there, and really teaching our retailers and our distributors how to do that. And I think some of the things we also learned early on was that value-added fruit, whether it's cut or created in a way that customers can consume it or take it home conveniently, is really important. Kristen, at Del Monte Fresh Produce, I know you work a lot with those items. What are some things that you see hot in the convenience channel that our listeners can certainly take advantage of?
So one of the things that I really love to do, and it's not just because I work for a produce company, but I like to walk through the produce aisles and see what is in the retail stores. What are consumers buying? What's on trend? What's popular? And a lot of times filter that back to convenience stores. But because we're a little, I'm going to call it behind the times, C-stores, we're still training customers to realize that there are fresh, healthy products in a C-store. That's still a very foreign concept to a lot of people out there, especially women being a big target. Most women are challenged getting into them. So we're looking at different things on the retail side, and I like to take those and convert them to make them convenient friendly. So maybe it's a veggie noodle. How can I take a retail size pack and make it convenient for somebody that doesn't want a salad or doesn't want a sandwich, and give them a healthy alternative, as opposed to going, and not having a lunch or having to go source it somewhere else.
That sounds really good. What's a veggie noodle?
So growing up, most kids aren't fans of zucchini, squash, butternut, all these crazy produce items you see on the shelf. So basically you take the item and you kind of cut it into very thin slivers. You can take and put marinara sauce on it. Is it a garlic butter? Put it in the microwave real quick so it's convenient, a couple minutes, warm it up. And now you've got a healthy pasta-style veggie meal or side pairing with maybe it's a salad or a cup of fruit, instead of having something heavy like a pasta or the big carbs for a healthy alternative.
Yum.
You're targeting another consumer.
Well, I saw some of that at the United Fresh show last June, and it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's these simple devices. You don't have to sit there with a knife or there's just peelers that do that and then create the noodles. Or you can buy them just packaged. And I think that's really the evolution of what we're seeing with where produce is and where produce is going. And Kristen, like, for example, I know that Del Monte sells pineapples. You're not going to see somebody come out of a convenience store chewing on a pineapple. That's really bad for driving and things like that. But when you look at the way kids are, like our kids, they're taking all those things home and they're making a smoothie and they're making it immediately. It could be for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And how do you have those parts together and communicate? Maybe it's not value added, but maybe it's just telling that story about bundling a couple of these items, going into either the office or at home, an instant smoothie, perfect for the summer, just like the way veggie noodles are perfect for the summer.
That's one of the biggest, it's a challenge, but it's a huge opportunity, is figuring out how to bundle different products and sell that without creating something that is targeting one specific consumer. So we've seen the smoothie kits and they've done well, but are you limiting yourself to that one SKU? So we do different bulk options. I'll do maybe it's a 16-ounce melon medley that has all the different melons, or it's got a pineapple or an apple. So you can grab something like that, take it to work or to school or wherever you're headed towards a picnic, and let's say you've got a little bit of extra. Now you can come home and you've got the balance of it to use in your smoothies at home, or is it a snack at work, however you choose. So you see a different variety of sizes on the shelves, ranging anywhere from a 2-ounce to a 16-ounce, because every consumer has a different need. What I prefer is different than what Tom prefers to stop and grab in the morning or in the afternoon for a great snack. So it just varies throughout the system, and that's why we've created such a broad assortment, so that each consumer can uniquely tweak it to what they're craving at that time.
That's really interesting, because yes, we all go for different occasions, but I might be going on my way to work where I might have a refrigerator. I can put the leftovers, and if I don't, I'm going to finish that cup. I do not waste food. I will make sure that it all goes somewhere good. But I mean, if I'm on a road trip, then it's like, oh, I don't want to get the giant sized one, because where am I going to put the rest of it? Now I got to eat it all because I'm cheap. But I think that's important to have a variety of sizes. That's a great thought.
Hey, Carolyn, this is one of the things that I think our industry on the produce side has really risen to the occasion to really understand convenience in a different way. We always thought that, hey, what's wrong with eating an apple? And there's nothing wrong with a whole apple. But on the other hand, when you cut up that into apple slices, you've just opened yourself up to a whole new marketplace. We've had some studies done where even in schools, where if kids are given an apple on their plate in the cafeteria, a number of them don't eat it. They don't have, their teeth aren't all developed, or, the young kids in elementary school. But if you give them apple slices, something like 80% of the kids eat those, and way more than they would for the regular apple. So that's where, the size packaging, the fresh cut fruit, all of those things I think we are finally embracing and bringing to the C-store community.
Yeah, one of the other things that came out of that study was the convenience factor, and we put it in one of our magazine articles once, that put the spoon or the straw next to whatever it is you're selling, because if you go into a store and you can't find it, you got your fruit cup, now you're like, oh, where's the spoons? And you're wandering all over trying to find it. Put them right next to it. Put the thing that you need in order to consume whatever it is directly next to it. Make it as convenient and obvious as possible.
Yeah, and Tom, tagging on to what you were talking about, the new convenience, and we've had a great relationship with United Fresh over the last few years, but it's really important for United Fresh to work with everyone in the convenience space, which is essentially everyone. And I was on a panel last year at the United Fresh show. It was somebody from the drugstore industry. It was me, and somebody from Blue Apron. And we all had equal presentations time-wise, and then we had 15, 20 minutes for Q&A. Every single question was to Blue Apron. Every single question. And the moderator was a wonderful moderator. Finally, at the end, said, does anybody have a question for Jeff? Can somebody please ask Jeff a question? And I think the question was, Jeff, what do you think of Blue Apron? So, I mean, Blue Apron was really hot in terms of redefining what convenience is all about. And they've stumbled since then. But what it says that convenience, there is a great demand for looking at new levels of convenience. It may not be a convenience store, may not be convenience delivery, but people will eat produce if you package it conveniently and you provide it conveniently. And that's a trend, I assume, Tom, that it's going to be more on display.
Yep, that simply is continuing to grow a lot. I think back to that Blue Apron discussion, and there's something sexy about a new channel that many people don't understand. They haven't seen it in operation. They think they know what C-stores are, but I would say that a ton of your members are reinventing the C-store experience. They're becoming fresh food stores. They are no longer just the chips and beer and soda. And really, that's something that Kristen said. We still have a lot of consumers out there who don't understand that. So, I really congratulate NACS on what you're doing out in partnerships with the public health community, really trying to raise the profile that, hey, you want to eat healthy? Come to C-stores. That's something that I think is going to be an important part of the messaging going forward.
Thanks, Tom. I think it's also one of those things that we have the choices too, because I use this reference a lot, but when I'm on my family of 4 road trip, one of us wants chips, one of us wants hot dogs, and somebody else wants fruit, and somebody else wants granola bars, and we have everything, and that's important, especially on those long trips when you've been going and going and going, and you're like, I need something fresh. So I know that I can turn to C-stores, so that's important to note.
So, Carolyn, I've got to give a shout out to one of the C-stores talking about long road trips. Tell you a quick story. We had our board of directors meeting in Santa Fe last week, and about 2 or 3 of our directors and my wife, actually, Kathy, were on a plane that got turned around because of weather. They landed in Lubbock, Texas, and they had to drive in a minivan from Lubbock over to Santa Fe, about 6 hours. But lo and behold, it's night. That's a pretty limited road, but sure enough, they stopped in an Allsups along the way, nothing else nearby. And they found a great assortment. They found exactly what you said. Everybody chose something different. My wife, of course, chose the fresh fruit and said it was as good as any she'd ever had. So shout out to them for doing a great job.
Yeah, if you Google or whatever your search engine is, if you type "Welcome to the New Convenience Store," Wall Street Journal, great article talking about some of the new concepts. And one of them we visited last year for the NACS Ideas to Go video called Green Zebra. Started out as a grocery store. They've evolved into a convenience store. And the reporter asked the CEO point blank, are you a grocery store or are you a convenience store? And she says, I'm a convenience store, because that carried more cachet for what she thought the future was than and she has a grocery background. That doesn't mean grocery doesn't have a good, solid present and future. But she was looking at where convenience is going to take her, and she was going to lead convenience. So,
yep, that's very, very true.
Kristen, one of the things that Carolyn and I have talked about, not necessarily on the air, but the huge trend related to avocados and how that has become just really from avocado toast to how avocados are year-round. It's not just a product that is just seasonal, but it's not just May 5th and guacamole or the Super Bowl and guacamole, but really has taken off on something that can really easily be sold in a convenience store and can be used for meals like breakfast.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. So avocados are they're a challenge, but they're one of those phenomenal things that we all love to either snack on. I personally cut it in half and just scoop it right out of the shell. I don't need the toast. I love just the flavor profile of them. So as far as grab and go is concerned, because they are somewhat challenging to maintain the freshness through the distribution channels and throughout the shelf life in the store level, we are working on different little snacking options. Maybe it's a 2-ounce kind of a UHP with a veg pairing to target those consumers that maybe it's they don't want a hummus today. They want a guac option because it's healthier than a ranch dip. Ranch will never go away. We absolutely all love it. It's a fan favorite from kids to adults. But we're always looking as how do we continue to expose consumers to other blends, other combinations, and different ideas, different concepts. Also working, again, taking concepts we see at the retail level and putting them in C-stores. So how can I get a fresh guacamole in a smaller package available to consumers during, we'll call it peak season, we'll call it the summer, when most are looking for that chip and snacking option. Yeah, you're headed to the pool, you're headed to picnics, you're headed to have a great time with friends, and so you need a good snacking option, and chips and dip go really well together.
But it has to be the good size, just like you said, the portion size. Otherwise, here I am, I'm going to have to eat the whole thing because I'm not going to waste it.
I'm the same way as you are, so sometimes a little bit smaller definitely is better. So we're not having that waste, and once you chop up an avocado, it doesn't necessarily last as long as a piece of cut fruit will. So paring down that offering size and making it convenient so you can pick it up and you can snack on it.
Oh,
that's what it's all about.
Here's snacking. A question. Merchandising, or not even merchandising, but storing. You can't put an avocado near like anything, right? Because it just over ripens, like bananas and things like that.
Gases.
Or is that all a myth?
No. It's all very true. So just like bananas, avocados emit their own ethylene. So you don't want to store them together. You don't want to put them next to a heat source. You don't really want to put them in the cold case either. I've seen a lot of stores expanding into whole products, which includes avocados. And you can even go more broad and do tomatoes and onions and potatoes and peppers, from what I've seen, almost farmer's market style on an end cap or maybe in the center of the store, grasping those customers' attentions, depending on where your store's located. And avocados are a great addition because they'll kind of ripen on their own throughout the store. So some might want to grab a couple because I'm going to use one today, one tomorrow. Some might grab the ripe ones right out of the bucket, and now you've hit multiple consumers and what they're looking for almost immediately.
And I think we have a project, just what you talked on, how we can develop a handling guide and tell retailers what produce plays nice together.
And what doesn't.
What doesn't, what belongs in the fresh case, what doesn't. And I was at one meeting a couple of years ago, and somebody talked about all you got to do is put the bananas in the refrigerator, and there were audible gasps. I mean, the nutritionists were just like, you don't do that. And so, but if you don't know, that's what you do. And hearing about best practices for how you not only store things, but when it's time to maybe not sell something, I think there's a great opportunity to talk about how we can work with food banks and other groups so that somebody else can either find value in it or it can do something better than just winding up in landfill.
That's a really interesting point. It's beyond that. It's what can retailers do in the middle of that. Like, can they make smoothies out of these? The not quite beautiful looking banana that's left over after a day. Mm-hmm. What's the aftermarket? I don't know, the in between market value of those things. What can you make with them? Banana bread, stuff like that. That's important too.
I was actually going to kind of segue a little bit because I think what we're beginning to talk about here is the handling, the distribution, some of those challenges. And if you look back and say, why didn't convenience stores carry more fresh years ago? I think it was too challenging. These are tough products to manage, and not just in-store merchandising. They're tough all the way through the distribution channel. So I do think that's really an important part of this as well for the C-stores and your distributors and your produce suppliers, really all of us to be working together on maintaining the cold chain, maintaining the ideal conditions, delivering at the store as quickly as we can, making sure it's held properly in the store, merchandised in the right way. And that's one of the things I think our two organizations can do together is continue to develop those best practices to help our members.
Amen. Because if it's not done right, well, certainly you can have a lot happen that is not good. And we need to do these programs right, and we need to work with the right people. And certainly United Fresh is that group. And going back, Kristen, you were talking about banana bread and just the opportunities for what you can do with product like avocado, I have learned, replaces mayonnaise pretty nicely if you want to make a tuna salad or a chicken salad or something like that. So bananas with banana bread, there are interesting ways to take produce that people may not have thought of.
There are, and even at the convenience level, bananas are one of the number one fresh food items in the stores. Hands down, everybody wants them. You've got to have bananas. That's your driving factor. But going back to what Tom mentioned, they all pair together. So the biggest challenge we see, but also the biggest opportunity, is with handling and education from not only the distribution, but the store level to the consumer as well, and understanding and knowing where your products are, what to look for, and where everything is becoming more and more available. Most C-stores that I've worked with will look at you in the initial conversations and go, I can't handle that. It's short-coded, or it's going to be too hard, or it's kind of scary, because it is. And once you go through that education process with them and show them how it'll flow, the distribution process, it's eye-opening, and it's very exciting to see how much they've grown and absolutely love the program and couldn't survive without it now. That's the trend. It's what people are looking for. So if you don't have it, you need to get in the game.
So what, Kristen, what might a retailer do who's interested? Okay, convinced me. What are the first things? Do they need to look at their operations and then come up with a plan, or can they work with a group like you or others to develop that plan? What is the process to step it up a notch?
So you can go about it both ways. You can contact whether it's a Del Monte or a produce supplier and work with your distributors. We certainly partner with a lot of distributors across the U.S. and work on all aspects of handling cold chain, ensuring that's intact. But at the same time, bananas don't like a cold environment. So not only making sure the distributors are handling it properly, but what happens at the store level? Like you said, some operators look at it and go, the rest of my produce goes in the chill, so I'm going to put it in there as well. So it's an education level from the top down, and meeting with the franchisee owners or the mom and pop locations and things like that, being able to have those one-on-one conversations with them and show them how the distributor is committed to providing that service to them and getting fresh products into their store on a consistent basis. Once you build that relationship and share the knowledge and essentially the facts behind it, they'll have that buy-in and see the program as it's working. You can walk into most C-stores across the U.S. and find fresh somewhere. So if we can make it work in one market, we can certainly make it work in other markets as well.
So, Tom, we'll give you the last word. You have your conference that you have every year. So you're looking at trends as you line up speakers, as you get you have exhibitors come in. What is the big trend or message that you're seeing as you bring together the produce industry annually more than annually, but in terms of your bigger meetings, to kind of look at what is going on and what will be the trend that will drive us for the next year?
Jeff, there are a couple I want to mention. Obviously, the fresh, healthy, better for you space is what the consumer is driving today. Everybody's looking for fresh and healthy. And the challenge I think all of us face is they're looking for it immediately. They're looking for it everywhere, anytime, multiple channels. Consumers shop multiple channels. They're in C-stores, they're online, they're in grocery stores. So there's a huge competition out there. So those would be the two trends, I'd say. Consumers looking for fresh and healthy, and the competition is tough. So make sure that that you're front and center with these products and really doing a best job, because that's what's going to separate us from other competitors.
Well, thank you, guys. And for those of you who are interested in Fresh, United Fresh Produce Association is at www.unitedfresh.org, convenience.org/refresh. We have plenty of resources there, working on them with United Fresh. Thank you both for joining us today.
And thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.